Hi everyone, it's Nicole Spohr here today for Simon Says Stamp with a Crafty Friend die cut background card featuring lots of dies from Simon Says Stamp, as well as a background stamp and a sentiment strip and even a little stamping on an envelope to match. We're going to be combining lots of products here for this really fun background. I absolutely love creating all die cut backgrounds, and this really cute art supplies die collection is perfect for creating an all over background. Now I accidentally forgot to turn on my camera while I was stamping this background. This is one of my favorite Simon Says Stamp background stamps called Good Reading, and I stamped this on a 4 by 5¼ inch panel of smooth white cardstock using Pinkfresh Studio Misty Coast ink. In addition to this, this is a really super light gray. It's really fantastic for subtle backgrounds. And I wanted my background to have something to it. And you're going to see why once I add the die cut pieces on top of this, instead of just being basic white. And in addition to that, I wanted to ink the edges so that they had a little bit of a smoky feel to them. So I'm going to take an ink blending brush and then that same Pinkfresh Studio Misty Coast ink and ink around the edges just to give it a little something. And it's going to mute it just enough, and it's so pretty. Now off camera, I went ahead and die cut all of the pieces for my card because there's lots of little bits and pieces here. I've die cut the paint palette, and I will say I decided to only do the paint palette once, even though I had to die cut it multiple times, looks like about 13 times, to get all those different colors for the palette. If you don't want to die cut that many pieces of cardstock, you could always consider die cutting one piece of cardstock and simply taking markers or paint and coloring in those pieces individually instead. I die cut scissors from some silver foil cardstock and then the handles from some of the same fun colors of cardstock. These pieces are pretty small. I used scrap pieces of cardstock to die cut everything, and of course I am doing rainbow colors, so there's rainbow of everything here. The exact colors of cardstock I'm using are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube, as well as in the supplies on the blog post that coordinates with this video. So if you're wondering, if you see a color of cardstock and you wonder exactly what that is, you can find that information there. I know I'm combining Hero Arts, Gina K, Simon Says Stamp, and Lawn Fawn for sure. Just whatever cardstock colors struck my fancy from my stash. And again, I use scraps. All of these little pieces were die cut from scraps. The silver foil cardstock is Tonic Studios, and I love this for scissors. And I am gluing everything to my background panel with Ranger Multi-Matte Medium. Now that fine tip applicator that I have on my bottle of Multi-Matte Medium is a Scrap Perfect nozzle. I always get lots of questions about this when I show it in a video, and I absolutely love it. I have one of these on this bottle of Multi-Matte Medium, and I have one on my glossy accents. It really creates a fantastic little teeny tiny stream of adhesive. And so it's fantastic if you want to, for example, if you've got a delicate die cut shape and you want to add glossy accents to it, like I would say a word, like even this Hello Crafty Friends, if you wanted to draw over that with glossy accents to make it shiny and raised, I love the fine tip applicator for that. It's also great for all these small pieces or small die cut pieces. I am applying glossy accents to my paint palette, the paints in the paint palette. I do not have my Scrap Perfect applicator on this bottle. It's actually on another bottle that I couldn't find at the moment, so I just grabbed another bottle of glossy accents. These are circular shaped, and so I really had no trouble, getting that adhesive just in that shape and not getting it everywhere else. But I really like the tip if I am drawing something scripty or a little more delicate and detailed. I am purposely trying to keep that kind of upper half of the card, you can kind of see there's the scissors, a paintbrush going around the edge, and then the paint palette is down below with some other paintbrushes and scissors. That's going to be where our Hello Crafty Friend sentiment goes. I want the sentiment to overlap some of the embellishments a little bit, but not so much that they completely cover them up. You might wonder why I went ahead and did the glossy accents now. I did that so it could start drying while I'm working on the rest of the card. I knew I had tons of little bits and pieces to adhere. We've got the little paint tips for the paint brushes. We've got the little silver band that goes around the brush. I will say I did use another specialty cardstock. This is the Fawn wood grain cardstock in the natural color for my paintbrush handles. I really liked how this looked, and then I used that silver foil that I used for the scissors for the band, and then just cardstock colors and some of those same colors I used for the paint palette or the scissor handles for the tips of my paintbrushes. And we're going to use 5 paintbrushes, 3 pairs of scissors, and 1 palette. Originally, this is all I was going to use for the card. And you will see, or you probably noticed at the beginning of the video with the full card sample, there are splatters of paint. That's actually going to come from another Simon Says Stamp die collection, and I added that at the very end. I felt like my card was missing something. I couldn't decide if I wanted to add my own kind of splatters with like Nouveau crystal drops, or if I wanted to add sequins or gems, something. I knew I wanted to add something, and I really kind of let this card set for a while. If you're ever struggling with knowing that it needs something, but you're not exactly sure what, I recommend walking away. Walk away, come back, 20, 30 minutes. Sometimes I sleep on it and come back the next day, and the answer is generally there. And it popped into my head, we're using craft art supplies here. That's the name of this die collection. We're using the Hello Crafty Friend sentiment. I remembered the paint palette die that came out, I'm going to say, I think it was in Stamptember last year for Simon Says Stamp, and it's so awesome. It's a little too big as far as the palette doesn't really go with these die cut shapes, but the splatters taken from that paint palette are going to be perfect to add splotches of color throughout my background. And it's going to help because it's a very white, heavy background, even though I have got that awesome distressing in the back with the stamped text background, and we've got splashes of color here and there, but it just needed a little something. With the Hello Crafty Friend, I am going to go ahead and die cut the script from black cardstock and then the outline from white and glue the black on the white. Now, as it always happens, I lost the dot for the word friend, for the I in the word friend. And instead of die cutting it again, which I originally thought I'll just die cut it again, I'm actually going to take some Nouveau crystal drops in ebony black and just add a dot to the I so I don't have to die cut the whole thing again just to get that little die cut black piece. I had it, it disappeared. It's probably on my table. It slid under the glass mat. I don't know. I looked everywhere and I couldn't find it. And so that's just a little quick solution for that. Before I add the Nouveau crystal drops, however, I want to pop up my sentiment with foam adhesive. I'm using a combination of foam strips and foam squares. The foam strips, if you remove the backing paper from both sides, you're able to kind of shape it around the curved edge. So any of these, the loop in friend or anything like that, or the ends of the letter Y or D, you're able to kind of move and position those foam strips really easily, which I love. And that's going to pop up my sentiment and really make it a focal point on the background. But it definitely needs that dot for the letter I in the word friend. In addition to the Hello Crafty Friend, I am taking a Simon Says Stamp Sentiment Strip Artist. This is from the Artist collection, and I'm just going to trim apart the phrases from this set, and I'm going to use You Color My World because that works perfect for this design. And I'm going to pop up that little strip with foam adhesive as well. No stamping required for this, but you definitely could use a stamped sentiment if you prefer. Then I'm going to glue this to my background. Now this is about the point where I'm thinking it's a little light. It needs something. I'm going to go ahead and add that dot to the letter I. And then I'm going to die cut some splatters using that paint palette die and add those around the card. And the difference that this makes, because look at, I have them just laying out here, but look at what a difference just adding those little splatters around my card makes. Adds so much more color. It really works great with the rest of the designs here. And it's a different way to use that paint palette because you can see those actually all fit in the paint palette. But if you take them, they make great little splatters. So it's just a really fun way to use a previously released die, something I already had in my stash, with something brand new. I am trimming some of these pieces down so that they have a straight edge, so that they fit this 4 by 5¼ inch panel, since I already adhered it to my background and I had trimmed away any excess hanging off the edge of my background with my scissors earlier. And we're gonna fill in all the areas. We're just gluing those down in place. And then because we used glossy accents on the paint palette itself, on the paints in the palette, I am gonna take glossy accents and add that to all of these paint splatters. And then I also want to add that to the tips of the paint brushes. You could even do the handles of the scissors if you wanted to. I opted not to, but I think that that really just kind of ties everything together because the paint brushes, I want them to look like they've been dipped in the paint. The splatters, of course, I want them to look like, you know, just splatters all over the background from our paint palette. We're going to draw that on. The glossy accents will dry pretty quickly. I'd say let it sit for about an hour or so and you should be good to go. Now the last thing I'm going to do is take a border stamp, some scissors, and the Hello Crafty Friends sentiment from the Crafty Friends stamp set that has been out for a while from Simon Says Stamp. Stamp that with Audrey blue ink on the back flap of an Audrey blue envelope from Simon Says Stamp, and we have ourselves a matching set that goes together perfectly. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this Hello Crafty Friend die cut background card featuring Simon Says stamps and dies. The supplies I used to create my card and envelope are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Simon Says stamps and dies that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel so that you never miss a new card making or paper crafting video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.